Was Harry and Meghan's future as working royals doomed from the very beginning? Were they naive and ignorant enough to believe that they'll always be able to control the narrative? Or have they set themselves up for a failure on purpose? Let's look into it, shall we? My name is Joanna. Welcome to Royal Recollections. When it comes to Harry and Meghan, many things are unclear, including when they've met. Was it in May, while Meghan was still in a relationship with Corey Vitello? Or was it a few weeks later, just after she left her previous boyfriend? Regardless of the exact timing of their first dates, different records seem to agree that they've managed to keep their relationship a secret for the first few months. And I'm positive that Harry wanted to keep it a secret for as long as possible. Meghan, on the other hand, I'm not so sure. Some people believe it was actually her who leaked the news of them dating to the press. In a book, Palace Papers, Tina Brown writes, in the first round of coverage, Meghan was portrayed as Grace Kelly Redux, an actress, humanitarian, and gender equality campaigner, making it hard not to believe that the initial leak came from Meghan's side, though a servant tip from the House of York has been fingered. Of course, we will never be sure what actually happened there and who leaked what. What's important is what followed. Once it was in the open, media became extremely interested in Meghan Markle, which is, by the way, what she always wanted. She was desperate to become famous before she's met Harry. She became famous thanks to him. And since Megxit, she's been doing everything possible to stay relevant, like recording a docu-series for Netflix, staged pub walks, and as of late, the desperate pseudo-royal tour of Nigeria. Harry may have hated the media attention they initially received. Meghan loved it. What she didn't love was that some of that coverage was negative. When Catherine became involved with Prince William, she also received a lot of press attention, and some of it was negative. Camilla, while in a relationship with Charles, and any pre-Meghan girlfriend of Harry were all subjected to media scrutiny. Once someone is associated with royalty, their social status increases beyond belief automatically just by the said association. And since the British royal family, quote unquote, belongs to the people and is founded by the taxpayer, the media take it upon themselves to introduce the newcomer to the general public. I'm not trying to defend the methods media sometimes use to obtain information. What I'm defending is their right to report on any given subject, be it Catherine Middleton, Meghan Markle, or international stock market. And as with any subject, once 1,000 articles were written about Meghan Markle, logic dictates that some of them will be positive, some neutral, and some will inevitably be negative. It's obvious. Meghan Markle's treatment by the press was, in my opinion, no different to the one that Catherine, Camilla, or any other royal bride before Meghan received. And this is why so many people were shocked. And I'm not using that word lightly. But what followed? In November 2016, just days after their relationship became public knowledge, Harry released, through Kensington Palace Communication, a statement to the press, accusing British media and social media users of racism towards Meghan, of harassing her and her family, and saying that he's worried for Meghan's safety as she is being hounded by the press, just like his mother was. This statement raised a lot of eyebrows. First of all, because it was unprecedented, which means that no other royal before Harry done anything similar to this. We are very fortunate in Britain to have a free press and a freedom of speech. And in my opinion, this statement can be read as an attempt to restrict these freedoms. Coming from anybody in a public life is bad enough, but coming from a member of royal family is just unheard of. What Harry basically said in that statement was, back off everyone, leave Meghan alone. If you don't back off, if you don't stop saying, writing negative stuff about her, it's because you're racist. You don't like her because you're racist. And that very statement was, in my opinion, beginning of an end of Harry and Meghan's future as working royals. It foreshadowed of so much of what followed. It solved absolutely nothing and created a myriad of problems for everybody involved. For the royal family, for the press, for Harry and Meghan themselves. It also created problems for any of us who dare to say anything negative about Meghan. That statement had far-reaching consequences, and some of them we are still dealing with all these years later. Harry writes in spare, "By the time she landed at Heathrow, my statement was everywhere," he wrote, "and changing nothing. The onslaught continued. In fact, my statement generated a whole new onslaught from my family. Pa and Willie were furious. They gave me an earful. My statement made them look bad. They both said, 'Why in hell?'" Harry wrote in his debut biography, Spare, that both his brother and father were worried that it made them look bad because they didn't do the same thing for their wives. I think Harry contradicts himself here. On one hand, he admits that the statement changed nothing, but on the other hand, he can't comprehend that this could have been the main reason why Charles and William were furious. They knew that nothing would be achieved by it, and a can of worms would be opened, especially when it comes to free press and a freedom of speech. Harry's statement suggested that royals are above the criticism. Princess Anne had an unfavorable press for decades. Camilla was being absolutely slaughtered by the newspapers for years. Catherine received negative press also. They all just carried on. They understood that by being public figures, they are open to criticism. They are not above it. I doubt William or Charles are in a competition with Harry when it comes to who's more affectionate or protective towards their respective wives. Harry writing in Spare that it was reason why they were furious is ridiculous. It sounds like something that Meghan told Harry, and he believed it. The statement also created a Streisand effect, which means that more someone tries to suppress or censor negative information, more it comes back to bite them on the backside. So by releasing that statement, Harry may have provoked many people who never criticized Meghan before to start criticizing her, just to exercise their freedom of speech. I think that some of the things written in a statement were exaggerated. Some of them definitely were true. I'm not saying that Harry or Meghan imagined it all. However, during the Oprah interview, when they were trying to show how she was being harassed by the press, they couldn't really prove their case. They showed screenshots of some of the supposedly British newspaper publications. And as we found out later, some of them were manipulated and many of them weren't even British. As far as I remember, some of them were Austrian or German, and majority of them were actually American. Also, when it comes to the Netflix documentary, which obviously Harry and Meghan control in terms of exactly what content was included, they failed to produce any proof of Meghan's harassment. They had to use stock image. And I think it's only fair to ask at this point, why couldn't they prove that Meghan was harassed by the press? Because for me, whatever they showed, the evidence they showed is unconvincing. Meghan keeps receipts. for everything. She takes photos and recordings of everything they've been doing. Did you notice how well documented their first holiday in Africa was? Do you remember that when Harry was proposing to her, she was switch on enough to reach for a phone and record it? Who does that? Who thinks about stuff like that in the moment when someone's proposing to you? So for that reason, I just don't buy it. I can't believe that Meghan wouldn't have photos that she's taken of paparazzi outside of her house, that there wouldn't be any pictures of them harassing her mom. Where are the photos of Doria, which were supposedly taken by the pups? Why were they never released? The only photos, the only member of Meghan's family that I actually seen pup shots of, and we're not talking about the stage ones, but the actual ones, is Meghan's father. As a result of Harry's statement, royal reporters and commentators were immediately facing harassment, even if they had nothing to do with negative coverage of Meghan. This post is from Robert Palmer, and I understand he's not everybody's cup of tea. However, what he's got to say here is extremely important. He writes, "At least one columnist has expressed regret for some of the initial coverage of Harry's romance with Meghan. In hindsight, others might wish things had been handled differently. But this statement turned the royal reporting beat toxic and prompted death threats to journalists." I have to agree with him here. I believe that Harry's statement created toxic culture that really didn't exist before. Internet is a vast, diversified space, and for every, let's say, Prince William supporter, you'll find someone who dislikes him. Same would go for Catherine or Charles. Internet users often write negative comments about certain people, and others would disagree, and that would be that. But not when it comes to Meghan. If you criticize some of Meghan's actions, if you say that you don't believe her, you would be harassed by Sussex Squad. You would be called a racist, or in some extreme cases, you may even lose your job, like Piers Morgan or Sharon Osbourne. This level of intimidation towards Meghan's critics started somewhere, and I believe it to be Harry's statement. As per Tom Bower's book Revenge, in order to pacify Meghan's anger, Knauf agreed to issue a statement on Harry's behalf, damning the media for their description of Meghan. Harry dictated the sentiments for Knauf to fashion into a statement. Committing Knauf to a conundrum, Meghan demanded that the statement should reflect the parallel between her potential fate and Diana's. Knauf suggested that over-dramatizing Meghan's distress would backfire, but Harry was adamant. If Meghan's wish to be equated with Diana was not satisfied, insisted Harry, he would probably lose her. And to wrap up this video, I'd like to go back to the questions I've asked at the beginning of it. And the first one was Harry's and Meghan's future as working royals doomed from the very beginning? And I think the answer to that question is yes, it was. But it had nothing to do with Meghan's mixed race background or unusually cruel treatment by British media. I think it had to do with their characters, with them as human beings. I believe that releasing that statement marked a critical moment in their relationship, and it also marked a critical moment in their future as the working royals. It was, in my opinion, the beginning of the end. It was the first stage of Megxit, which is bizarre when you think about it, because it happened months before they got married. It happened months before Meghan actually became a working royal. Question number 2 was, were they naive or ignorant enough to believe that they'll be able to control the narrative at all times? And again, the answer is 100% yes. No one is above criticism. King Charles, William, even our late Queen, which, to be fair, wasn't often criticized, was not above criticism. Once you're in a public life, once you're a public figure, there is no way of escaping it. You can't dictate to the press what they can or can't write about you or about your loved ones. It just doesn't work like that. And Harry and Meghan were almost 40 at that point. Meghan was approaching her 40s, I think, at that stage. So she must have known that if they really thought that they'll be able to escape the negative press by releasing a statement and telling magazines and newspapers and social media users not to write negative stuff about Meghan, they were proven wrong. And the third question I've asked at the beginning of this video was, have they set themselves up for a failure on purpose? And this one's a bit more difficult to answer. I don't think Harry did. I think he probably had good intentions releasing that statement. We know that he was scared that Meghan would walk away, and he was blackmailed into doing it. He probably thought that once the statement is released, she will be pleased that at least he tried, and they live happily ever after. However, when it comes to Meghan, I truly believe she did set herself and set them up purposefully for a failure. There are some people out there who believe that Meghan never really wanted to succeed as a working royal, and I am one of these people. We know from Tom Bower's book that she kept her agent back in the LA, that she never shipped her clothes to Britain. Why would you do it? Why would you keep some people working for you or with you back in America when you were supposedly coming to Britain to stay here and serve the country? All Meghan needed to do was to convince everybody that she wanted to be part of the royal family, that she wanted to be a working royal, because she needed the title. She couldn't just go back to America still being Meghan Markle. She needed to be the Duchess of Sussex. I think what we can see through analysing this statement and the circumstances that it was released in is that from the start, Harry and Meghan's relationship was based on deception, manipulation, and blackmail. It doesn't really bode well for the future of Harry and Meghan, does it?